They say fear keeps you alive. If that's true, then I should be immortal, because I've feared werewolves my entire life. Their claws, their hunger, their rage. But none of that prepared me for him. Alpha Dante Frost. Cold-blooded, merciless, rich beyond reason. And now, my husband. A contract sealed my fate, a secret hides my truth, and a heartbeat, tiny and growing inside me, threatens to expose it all. Because I'm carrying a werewolf's child. And if he finds out what I really am, I probably won't live long enough to give birth. You being here means the world to me, bestie. Truly. But I want to feel your presence. So before we begin this story, drop your city or country in the comments. I promise I'll smile when I see it. Get over here, Freya. Dante's shrill voice sounded as he sat at the desk in his office. A humongous room atop a lofty skyscraper in the middle of the city. The world simply bowed on their knees whenever his name came up. And now I was standing in front of him like a puppet. The smell of nausea wrapped around my nose even in the well-air-conditioned room. While 4 men in black suits and dark glasses stood behind him. You know why I have called for you? Dante asked, leaning on an arm while it rested on his armrest. How wouldn't I know with the mails that piled over time? You want me to pay the debt my parents owed you, I said, gulping at the menacing look on his face. Dante smiled, lapping his tongue against the fangs that bared at me. I flinched, partly out of fear and partly out of revulsion, staring at the werewolves in front of me as he sat. I hated their kind, for who they were and what they were. Was it learned, or it was an emotion that spurred from somewhere unknown? I didn't know, but what I knew was I didn't want to be in his presence. How do you intend to pay? Because I want the full payment now, Dante said with blue eyes glinting under the luminescent light. I will work hard to pay the bills we owe you, I said, eager to run away. Hiding in their midst was no easy feat as a human, and my parents had done their fair share. Dante let out a raucous laugh that brought his men into the picture. You intend to pay a debt your parents never finished? How does that work? I fumbled, scrambling my brain for an answer. Yet, my fragile human brain could not process a thing. You will do nothing because you aren't capable of doing such, Dante said with certainty in his tone. I lowered my head because I knew what it was. His words did not hide the situation I had found myself in. Over 200,000 in debt stemming from years of school and survival. I will work for you. Your parents have done their parts working for me, Dante said with a mischievous smile. I raised my head to stare at him. That's the only thing I can do for you. Sir. Have I listed the only option you have? Dante asked, clasping his hands in front of him. My heart raced as I could not comprehend what the cunning wolf would present. Dante leaned back with a deep sigh. The sound of wood grating against each other echoed around the room. I could hear it. The scuffle of paper as Dante pulled it out of his drawer, slamming it against the table. This, I flinched from the sound and the tone of his voice. What is that? I asked, unsure of what purpose and wary of the smile on Dante's face. A contract of marriage. I staggered backward, and the already big room, threatening to swallow me in its belly. A marriage contract? That's not possible. Considering the debt your family's wallowed inside, this is not enough to repay it, Dante said as he stood slowly with his fingers pointing to the contract on his table. I can't do that, I said, stepping backwards to escape the cage gathering around me. Dante smiled, flicking out a pen from his breast pocket. You have to sign on it. Or... The words faded out of his mouth as he turned to stare at the men behind me. Not like you have a choice, the man fanned out, preventing any escape route for me. I turned around, stopping as Dante had moved as light as a feather standing in front of me with his eyes gazing into mine. A tiny squeal escaped my throat and my hands reached up to cover my chest like it would protect me from the force in front of me. Sign it, Dante commanded. His voice was a low purr as he pushed the contract in front of me, forcing the pen into my palm. I can't. I stammered, but my throat grew coarse from the fear growing from inside me. Dante tilted his head. You have no choice, Freya. A claw stretched out from his finger, drawing against my cheek. My chest tightened, and my palms sweated as a guard pulled a table in front of me. Dante leaned away, smiling as he did so. Sign it, and all your debt goes away, he said with his arms spread out. I dropped the paper on the desk, staring at the men who would pounce at me if I made one wrong move. The contract spelled 4 years as the time range for me to pay my debt. 4 years? I muttered to myself as I put the ballpoint to paper. Still thinking about it. Or I have to hold your hands myself, Dante asked. He had moved away, leaning on the mahogany table that graced the front of his managerial seat. No, I answered. A silent whisper in the silence that was only broken by my scribbling on paper. My hands shook as the pen dropped on the ground, flowing with the sounds of clapping. There we go, easy peasy, lemon squeezy, Dante said. We are now husband and wife. Mate for the next 4 years. The guards around him clapped their hands like they were automatons in a factory. Dante turned to the men. Lead her to the car. I want my bride treated with the utmost respect. My things, I started to say as 2 men grabbed my hands, leading me away from the office. You will get new things when you get to my place. If you so desperately need your things, I'll have my men bring them to you. Dante said as he turned away, staring out at the window pane behind me as they led me away. The men laughed as they pushed me into the car, slipping inside as well. Why would the Alpha want someone like her? One asked as they started the car. I lowered my head to the space in the car as the men sat on opposite sides to stop me from running away. I said nothing, listening as they ranted about Dante's choice until we had arrived at his manor. A house in the mountains with a size that was almost haunting as we approached its parameters. A few months had passed, and the only things to have happened in the mansion between Dante and me was breakfast and dinner. Some days had passed with it only being one, or none of it, until one night. Freya, Dante's voice called, followed with the sound of my door smashing against the wall. I sat up on my bed, staring as Dante walked up to me. His tie loosened in an awkward manner. What are you looking for here? He stopped with the top buttons of his shirt pulled off to reveal his chest. What married couples do, he answered as he moved like a flash of light, grabbing my hands before I could make his move. I could smell his work sweat on him mixed with his perfume. I hated what he was, but I couldn't resist as he drew closer. It is a contract, I reminded him. A contract you signed. Dante said as his nose grazed against my skin. My skin tingled. If it was hate, I didn't know anymore as my body ached for him. You forced me. You had the choice not to sign, Dante said. His voice was like a sexual lull drawing me in. His hand caressed my thighs, pulling up wards. Besties, if this story is feeding your soul, let your subscription feed mine. You did not give me a choice. I replied with my breath coming in gasps. My mind didn't want him, but my body ached for him like a moth to a flame. Dante smiled, pinning me to the bed. A shame that we are now married, and I want to spend the night with my wife, he said, parting my legs with his midsection. I didn't know when it escaped my lips. A slight moan as I felt his bulge rub against me. You didn't say. The words drowned out with another moan as Dante put his lips on my neck, rubbing it lightly. You want me to, don't you? Dante asked as his hips moved, grinding against mine. My thighs watered, my hatred disappearing into the call of lust. The answer came in another moan as he moved downward, grazing his lips against my breasts. It was like a dream as his hand caressed my body. Clothes left out bodies, leaving Dante and me in a cache of mangled, naked skin. A gasp escaped my throat as I felt him stick himself inside me. His body thrust against mine, drawing out feelings I had never thought I would have for a werewolf. Our bodies continued in that intricate dance. Sweat poured from his body as we gasped in lust. Dante pulled out, dropping on the bed while gasping for air. I knew he was done, as he rolled around in the bed. I closed my eyes, hoping he would leave. He remained almost like he wanted to do something before changing his mind and heading out of the room. I wrapped the sheets around myself as I felt the door close behind Dante's leaving. Ashamed of what I had done. I had slept with the same creature I hated. I shared intimate moments with him, and that was all. I turned to my bed, letting my tears flow into it before falling into a sleep. The following year continued in the same rhythm. Dante would come to my room, and I couldn't resist him as our clothes would peel from our bodies. His scent would intoxicate me once more, and he would fill my inside in a way no one had ever done. Today was no different. As he slipped away to work, while I laid in bed ashamed of what I had done, waiting for him to leave the manor before I stepped out of my room. "Mrs. Dante?" the butler said, as I stepped out of my room, pointing to the dining table. "Sir Dante had asked me to show you what he had for you, as he wouldn't have the time to spend breakfast with you," he said, as he led me in. I stood, staring at the large bouquet of rose flowers on the table. 2 years I had spent in Dante's manor, and not a day since we first had sex had he not left a present for me. I shook my head to shake away the feelings welling inside me. He could not do nice to me because he loved me, I thought as I walked to the dining table for breakfast. "What would you have me do with the bouquet?" the butler asked, lowering his head. I stared at the meal prepared, feeling the urge to throw it away and the urge to accept it was a gesture of love. "Put them in a vase or something," I said, ignoring the huge bouquet in front of me. "As you wish, ma'am," the butler responded as he walked away, carrying the bouquet that covered almost part of me. My hand reached for my body, slamming against my side. I could feel his touch from the morning before he left for work. My body was having a hard time deciding between revulsion and affection. His smell flooded the dining table as the butler took the rose away. He had eaten a few minutes before I had stepped down to the dining room, ashamed of another moment of passion we had shared between ourselves. "What is this?" I asked, slamming the end of my fork into the table with my arms writhing in rebellion. "Is there any problem?" A housekeeper burst through the door, staring at me. "I heard something." "It's nothing," I answered, pushing my hair to the back of my ears as it had scattered across my face. "I thought I had seen a bug." "A bug? I'll call for fumigation." I held out my hand, stopping the housekeeper from moving away. "You don't have to worry about it. I'm a bit tired and I think I'm seeing things. I'll eat and head up to my room to rest." The housekeeper nodded, leaving me alone at the dining table. My hands gripped at the prongs of my fork, squeezing them together. I had to manage myself for the next few months. It wouldn't be long now, and my debt would be cancelled with the end of the contract. If you felt even one emotion, that's your cue to subscribe. Don't ghost me now, bestie. A few weeks had gone by, and there had been little to nothing happening around the manor. There were only a few months left, and all I wanted was to be free of the life I was living. "Where's Freya?" I could hear Dante's voice drawing closer to my door. I turned around, feeling my head ache from the little reaction. "I'm in here." The door burst open with Dante standing at the door. He hurried to my side, holding me to the bed. "You do not look all right. Have they been making you work around the manor?" His questions came in rapid fire while he continued to scan my body. "I'm fine," I muttered, rushing away from his grasp and into the restroom with a wave of nausea driving over me. I stopped retching into the closet as I felt someone standing at the door. "I think I have to call for the doctor," Dante said, reaching out for me. I moved away from his reach, wiping the back of my hand against my mouth. "I'll go to the hospital myself." "Are you sure? I've been working all these—" I stared at him, causing him to stop. "It's fine. I was only hoping you would be all right," he said as he turned away. I took a deep breath of relief as his presence faded away, using the opportunity to wash myself. Dante had gone to work by the time I had finished cleaning myself, heading out to the garage with the driver standing in front of its door. "The hospital, ma'am?" the driver asked as he saw me walking towards him. I nodded, aware that Dante might have told him of my destination. "The hospital." He nodded, opening the door for me before he took over the wheel. Our drive to the hospital was in silence. The journey was something I had wished for, after spending weeks and months in the manor. The hospital was a relief, except for its antiseptic smell. I took a deep breath as I stood in front of the doctor's office. They had drawn my blood and taken my urine for tests, and I was waiting for the results. "Come on in, Mrs. Freya," the doctor said, nudging his head at me. I walked into the room, sitting on the seat the doctor had pointed out. "What do you say is wrong with me?" I asked, eager to know the results. "I'll love to inform you, Miss Freya. You are 6 weeks pregnant," the doctor said with a benign look in his eyes as he raised his gaze from his computer. I raised my hand to my mouth, covering it from squealing. I could not be pregnant from an event I had tried my best to cower from. That's not true. It is not possible. That's what happens when two people have sex and copulate, Therefore it is possible. I stood up, hurrying away from the doctor's office and to the car. I had survived the first 2 years without an issue as I rushed to the car, still covering my mouth. "I return home?" the driver asked, staring at me from the mirror. "Home," I said, realizing my hand was still over my mouth as the driver continued to stare at me. "Take me to the manor." "Yes, ma'am," the driver answered as the car jerked forward, lurching into the cold asphalt. My mind blanked out as the car drove past buildings, heading towards Dante Manor. I slipped into my room, dropping to my bed like the weight of a pregnancy on my shoulders was heavier than the world. A few raindrops splashed against my window, dropping in flurry. "Freya." Dante's voice echoed through the house with the lightning that flashed. I whimpered at the place I had hidden, clutching my hand around my stomach. He had returned home earlier, I thought to myself. "Freya." Dante called out. I knew he was heading to my door with the footsteps drawing ever closer to me. The door banged open with Dante panting as he stood at the door. I drew a smile on my face to hide the emotions I was feeling at the moment. Dante rushed to me, wrapping his hand around me like a child lunging for his mother who had left him at home. "The doctor told me," he said with excitement ringing in his voice as his eyes lowered at my stomach. I wanted to wrap my hand around my stomach, hide it away from him, but it was the same as him, having the blood of the same thing I hated. How could I hate my own child? The question flitted through my mind as Dante remained latched to my body. "This is the best news I've heard in a long time," Dante said as he pulled me into another embrace, placing a kiss on my forehead. I froze in place as I felt the warmth of his lips against my skin. Those feelings were erupting once more as he pulled away. "I'll do whatever I can to make you as comfortable as you can until you have this child," Dante said as he pulled away. "You don't have to worry about anything. My wealth and everything belongs to you." I didn't want to believe, but I could see it in his gait and in his voice as he walked away screaming. "My wife is pregnant, and we are expecting a child." Dante's voice echoed along the corridor of his manor. I fell back to my bed, holding my stomach. I didn't know what to feel. My life had been almost a fairy tale since I came to the manor, and now, my thoughts drifted. The following months followed, without a hitch. I watched as my stomach grew with each passing day and Dante's presence. He remained around the house, watching me like every step I took was a deadly one until the day it had happened. Besties, think of subscribing as your love note to me. I promise I'll write you more stories in return. "My water's broken," I screamed, huffing and puffing as I stood at my open doorway with my legs spread open and liquid dropping down it. Dante ran to me, stopping as he saw the state I was in. "You will be all right," he said as he reached for me, grabbing my hand. My fears seemed to subside for a moment as I felt an ease as he led me towards a car. He spun around to the driver's seat. "Can you drive?" "That's not a question you need to ask," Dante said as the car revved. He reversed, spinning out of his manor. I knew where he was going, but the constricting pain only let me concentrate on the pain. The journey to the hospital seemed like an eternity as I screamed at the back. "We'll be fine," Dante said as he stared at me from the front mirror. We had to be fine, I thought as the car sped through the street. "It's a girl," Dante said as he stared into the baby cot, a wide smile on his face with his hands reaching into it. 3 years ago, I had a phobia for werewolves, but here I was, staring at the one man who had done everything to change my stereotype. "Freya," Dante said as he lowered himself to my birthbed. His blue eyes only radiated one thing I had grown to see over the past 3 years. "Dante," I called out, stopping him from saying anything. "I have a secret to tell you." Dante pulled away from me, still gripping the child in his hand. "She isn't mine, I'll take that as a joke." I chuckled, but it still did not take away my worries. "I think her blue eyes are enough, except you want to do a DNA test." Dante smiled, drawing his hand against her Goldilocks. "This is mine. I can feel it in the deepest recess of my soul. If it is because you still did not love me for the past 3 years? I understand," he said, closing his eyes against the backdrop of the studio light flashing against him. It seemed he had felt alone. And all those years we had been together was a hope that someone could love him. I had grown to love him, and it hurt me to feel he felt lonely because of what I had portrayed. It's not that. His eyes widened with an aura of light glowing around him. You do? I nodded my head, reaching out for him, but my hand stopped short of reaching him. That wasn't the secret I wanted to tell him. If that isn't the secret, what is? I let out a deep breath at the question he had thrown at me. Every fiber in my body struggled to tell him the truth as he waited. I am not a werewolf, I am a human. A soft chuckle escaped Dante's throat as he lowered his head to the baby, rubbing his hand over her small figure. Is that the secret you have hid from me? I nodded, gulping at his question. I didn't want to let you... I knew you were a human, Dante said as he raised his head to stare at me. When? How did you know? Why did you force me into a contract if you knew? I was the one asking the questions now as I stared at him. Dante stood from the bed, dropping the baby into the baby cot. Those are unreasonable questions. The only thing you need to know is that I have loved you from the first day I had seen you, and that is enough. He stopped, staring at the baby in the baby cot. She is evidence of that love. A love that we have shared for the past 4 years. A one-sided love for 3 years until I got pregnant. I murmured as I recalled the years. He put his hand on my shoulder, stopping me from speaking. And you love me now. That is what matters the most. I let out a wry smile, putting my hand on his hand as I stared into those dreamy eyes. What do we call her? Dante asked as he sat on my bed, his weight pressing it to its frame. I don't know. What do you think? I said with a shrug of my shoulders while sniffing. Dante hummed with his hands underneath his jaw like he was thinking. What do you think of the name, Aurora? I turned my head to the baby cot as she sucked on her lips. Aurora is lovely. She is a beauty, the reason she took my beautiful features, Dante said with a hint of pride in his tone. That would be me. Dante turned like my words hurt his pride. His mood had changed from happy to serious in a flash as he stared at me. I pushed myself back into the bed. What did I do? Do you want to end the contract? Dante asked as he stretched his hand to my face, holding my jaw in his grasp with a smile forming at the corner of his lips. I smiled as I realized he had played a fast one on me. No, I answered, pulling him closer to me and landing a kiss on his lips. That means we are together forever? Dante asked, with our lips still mushed together. I nodded, savoring the taste of his lips once more. Werewolves aren't as bad as I had thought. The end. Besties, hope this story made your day as much as your subscription would brighten mine. Here's hoping you'd also tune into my next story. Lots of love.